Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yeah, I can hear you. I
Oh,
can't see you though.
great! Oh, great! It worked first time. Because it was making, well, the right ringtone.
Right.
So, well, thank you for agreeing
Can
to
you see me,
this
by the way?
chat. No, all I see is your well, DP in a circle.
Right. I can't see you either. But
That's okay because I'm not fit to be seen.
oh, okay, fair enough. That's okay.
Uh-huh. So, we were going to talk about philosophy. You're a philosopher, a moral philosopher, in fact,
Yeah.
aren't you, David? And you. I mean, I was reading something by you this morning on Confucius and Hegel, which
Yeah.
I thought was interesting. So,
Well, yeah, because Hegel's the sort of my specialty. So I do like to compare his philosophy with others, even something like Eastern philosophy, things like that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I couldn't. I, it's so different, Hegel and Confucius. I mean, in the sense that I think ordinary people are meant to understand what Confucius said, but maybe ordinary people are not meant to understand what Hegel said.
Yeah. Well, that's a fair point. Yeah, but I was writing it for a specific audience, really, because there's the, I I was asked to provide something for this conference in at the University of Tobolsk in Siberia, where they are sort of very much into Eastern philosophy and mysticism. So I thought I would try and, because Hegel is my specialty, like I said, so I thought I would write them something to connect with Eastern philosophy, and that's what I came up with.
Oh, right.
There is a lot of I had to sort of stretch things to make the connections, really. But,
Yes. Yes, I mean, I like Hegel in that, he shows the development of ideas.
yeah,
So one of my favourite dialectical conclusions is that Judaism is thesis, Christianity is antithesis, and Islam is synthesis.
yeah.
And I don't know if you agree.
I hadn't actually thought of that. No,
I'm
to be
sorry to
honest.
spring it on you, but
I mean, so some of the dialectic is probably stretching it a bit, especially when he has at one point he has the dialectic of like the arts, the sort of thesis. Religion is an antithesis, and philosophy is the synthesis. So I'm not really sure about that.
oh, sorry. What was the thesis again? You were saying? I know you said
The thesis,
philosophy is a synthesis of
the arts.
religion, which is the arts and then
Yeah, towards the
religion.
end of the phenomenology of spirit, he writes about the sort of the arts being the thesis, and then he follows it with religion being the antithesis, and
Okay.
of course philosophy, which is where he ends up because philosophy is sort of better than anything really, is the synthesis.
Oh, right, right.
I think that's probably. I think I'm not. I can't quite follow him that far because I'm not quite sure about that really.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I'm not either. I
no.
thought they have to be the same kind of thing, but then you have
Well,
to
I mean,
explain the connection and all that. I mean, but the philosophy is wisdom. So I suppose
yeah,
if you broke down all the stuff that wisdom consists of, which I suppose we as philosophers ought to try to,
yeah,
um, then you get okay. So we say wisdom, which is
yeah.
philosophy or love of philosophy,
Oh,
is a synthesis of. I mean, I would like to say truth and justice. But maybe you have a different ingredient in mind.
well, I suppose you see that the thesis, antithesis, and synthesis doesn't actually appear in that form in Hegel, actually, although it is associated with him. He actually writes it out as being sort of an abstract stage, then a concrete stage, you know.
What ideas did he apply it to, though? What did he
Well,
say was thesis and antithesis and synthesis?
it keeps turning up throughout his philosophy. I mean, right at the beginning of the science of logic, for instance, where he starts right at the beginning with being, just being, with a capital B, which is sort of the most abstract concept of all.
Is that epistemology or is that ontology? Being.
It's I guess ontology, I suppose. Yeah. Oh, well, it's sort of this is Hegelian logic, really.
Right.
It's a bit difficult to say. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I often wonder to myself, what. I mean, a lot of Western philosophy, it's like, well, when you've boiled it down to whatever it is, it's like Kant. Oh yeah, he was just saying, um, um, don't use people, and then. What else? The Golden Rule. I mean, that's Confucius, and that's also Jesus. So people have kind of said it before, and it's not that original. So I don't know. I mean, it just seems to confuse people anyway. But you seem to be making a living out of it, so well done.
Oh yes, I owe him a lot, really. Yeah, because I did. I have written quite a lot on Hegel, yeah. So I have got a lot of mileage out of his philosophy. Although it is very obscure, and I can appreciate that. You do have to work hard at it, but it is well worth the effort.
So what would you say was the most useful thing Hegel said that that we can use ourselves? Any particular principle?
Well, you see, one thing I like about him is emphasis on history. Ideas are historical, and in fact, history is actually driven by ideas. I mean, this is the sort of thing that's probably not so fashionable these days in postmodernism. They don't like the ideas of meta-narratives. So Hegel's sort of out of fashion as far as that's concerned. But I rather like the idea of how ideas, can develop out of other ideas, and they sort of.
But do our ideas develop with any kind of logic? When we think of,
Yeah.
what happened before liberal democracy, and what's going to happen after liberal democracy, is that a Hegelian dialectic?
Yeah. Well, I suppose he does go into that sort of detail in his philosophy of history and in his elements of the philosophy of right. He does talk a lot about the sort of various political theories and how they develop out of each other. Starting with the Greeks and.
Yeah, but when you think about the Greeks, like they're most famous for democracy, but it didn't last that long with them, and then they came under the Roman Empire. So and now they're a basket case, the modern Greece. So
it's a good point actually, because the dialectic doesn't seem to sort of have a sort of smooth progress. Sometimes it seems to take a step backwards. Things happen.
Yeah, it seems to be more like a pendulum. So with the ancient Romans, it's sort of they started off as a people who hated kings, and then they carried on for a bit, and then they became a people who worshipped their emperor, just like the Chinese, in fact. And then they lasted for quite a while, and until they ran out of steam and got invaded by barbarians. But I mean, there's nothing. And then what happened after that? They became, well, I mean, Italy fragmented, and then you have, I guess the Borgias. I don't know if I'm getting the sequence right. And then Italy was split up into principalities, little kingdoms, and then it was unified, and now it's part of the EU, which is, I suppose, a kind of empire of Europe. So, And now, little Britain is trying to leave and they won't let us. And our politicians are saying, no, 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 what will we do on our own, little Britain, just off the edge of Europe. So we're a bit frightened of the future because we know our politicians don't know what to do.
That is very true, yeah.
So, but I think we were kind of trying to work out, weren't we, how philosophy can help politicians even come to the right decision about how to govern us better.
Well, I suppose, politicians. I mean, they will, whether they recognise it or not, they will be making their decisions on the basis of some sort of political ideas. Whether they're conscious of them or not, really.
But they're not principled ideas. It almost seems as if they're just doing it to make themselves look good, and then they don't even look good. So and we hate them.
That is very true, yeah.
And so they're not even, doing stuff to protect themselves, as far as I can see. I mean, I think, if I were May, I'd resign simply because it's like, well, obviously nothing I do is right, and you're all just, being mean about every single thing I'm trying to do, so somebody else do the job. I resign. I think that would be quite logical if I got to a position when I thought, I can't do anything right, I better stop it. But the awful thing is that nobody else thinks they can do a better job, or they would have kicked her out by now.
Yes. I'm not sure really what Hegel would make of the modern world, really.
It doesn't fit into his nice political theory.
No, it doesn't really.
But okay, so if you can think of political development like just a kind of pendulum, a pendulum that maybe goes up a bit and then goes down a bit, and so before we had liberal democracy, we had monarchy. And in Britain we had a constitutional monarchy because after the English Civil War, the monarch became less and less like a despot, an absolute monarch, which of course Henry VIII was, and then until we have a queen who doesn't really do anything at all, except be an ornament to Britain that the tourists like to come and see. So, but I suppose people are getting worried now because Trump got elected in 2016. I guess liberals are thinking, oh no, what does that mean? Does it mean that the liberal order is over? And are we just going, I guess, and then recently he identified himself as a nationalist, and everybody went, oh no, this means World War II and fascism and racism and war. So I guess people are worried, but it, and the thing is, I've always thought, nationalism shouldn't be considered in that negative way because actually World War II was really an imperial war. So Britain with its world empire just basically didn't want Germany getting above itself.
Yeah.
And rivaling it. So that was what it was, and people used to think, oh, democracies can never be aggressive and militaristic and all that, and I thought, but hey, you've just been at war. I mean, Britain declared war on Germany in the First World War as a democracy. So that claim is completely subverted by what happened, and then of course in the Second World War again the same thing happened. So democracies are not really that peaceable, and of course the original one, Athens, was not peaceable at all because Athens exhausted itself in war.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
And it seems to me that empires, they don't really go fight wars. in the Second World War, Russia was attacked, or the Soviet Union was attacked, and
Yeah.
then I think that the First World War, Russia only joined because it's like, well, we said we would, and now that one of our allies has been attacked, I guess we better go and. I think that was it, wasn't it? It was that the Austrians were being mean to the Serbians, and the Serbs are Slavs, and the Russians were Slavs, and I can't even remember how it started now. Sorry. So.
Well,
But obviously, it's something to do with the European powers, having their own agenda. And I guess they've always been more like the European nations have always been fighting some kind of war for some reason or another. And I guess because they've been fighting so many wars, they just got so good at war that they took over the world.
yeah. I suppose I see on the subject of nationalism, you see, I rather like the idea of nations, but the trouble is Europe at the moment, a lot of the leaders are sort of globalists, you see. I think that's where the problem starts. That's probably what's behind those sort of riots and demonstration in France at the moment.
Yeah, and what I think is like, if I were a leader and say, I had no principles at all, and I
Yeah,
just wanted to be, was this big shot leader, I would want people to be pleased with me. So if I had
yeah,
no principles at all, I would just, give the people what they want, so they love me and, think
yeah,
I'm really wonderful. So
yeah,
you think, well, why don't they do that? That would make sense, even if they're
but,
not, very principled.
yeah,
And you think that it's all about Brexit, and Brexit is basically about immigration,
yeah,
and and it's like, I thought, well, people do mind. They mind having lots of people that they don't know who's done. It's like they don't like it, and it's not even a kind of it's not even a kind of racism at the end of the day. It's sort of like, well, I preferred this country before they came. That's
well,
it.
exactly, yeah,
You know.
that's it really, yeah,
Yeah, and it's like, oh, but now we can't say we don't like it, and then then it becomes an additional reason to hate the migrants and immigrants. It's like, well, before you came, I could say all sorts of things. Now I can't, and it's all your fault.
well, that's true. It'll probably get even worse after the United Nations Pact, which the UK is going to be signing, where it sort of makes it sort of illegal to sort of criticise immigration policies, really. Seems
Yeah,
to want to come
yeah,
out.
yeah. It's like, but why are they doing that? I mean, why are they
Well, I
pissing
don't know.
everyone off? It's like why worry that the pot is going to boil over and turn up the turn up the heat? It doesn't make any sense at all. And I thought, all these migrants, it's like, I bet they'd be happier at home anyway, doing the kind of work and getting paid,
Yeah,
higher wages so they can just stay at home and be with their family and not have to bother with us hating them, maybe,
yeah,
you know? So that they can, none of it makes sense, which is why I think people are getting, really upset, and then and now they're blaming the Jews, and I guess they've always blamed the Jews, but it's like, what's going on? It's like, of course we're all going to get the blame in the end, because in the end everybody's going to blame each other, like, Brexit's not working, it's you lot, you for choosing to Brexit. And
yeah.
then,
That's
and
what
then I guess,
happens. Yeah,
people are going to say, well, it hasn't even happened. So don't
yeah,
blame us. In fact, you won't allow it to happen. So you
yeah.
can't blame us at all. So a lot of it is, oh, look what you made me do. And I don't know. And I'm just hoping, maybe philosophy can
Well,
help.
I wish it could, but
Hegel,
philosophy has
maybe.
limits. But
But okay, wisdom. Okay, we wanted to find wisdom. It's sort of,
yeah.
if you're wise, you can predict the future, can't you? If you're
Well,
wise enough. Like, oh, I knew that wouldn't work. Oh, that was a silly thing to do.
Well, yeah, learning from experience is probably very wise, yeah, but of course it's
But sometimes you can tell something is obviously the wrong thing to do before it is even done.
yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose there are unintended consequences which you can't always account for. But I mean, wisdom is usually, since Socrates, is usually sort of associated with the idea of knowing what you don't know, really, or the extent of your knowledge.
Well, I think a lot of it is to do with deductive
Yeah,
logic, isn't it? It's like, well,
yeah,
I know it's not a good idea to jump out of the window now,
yeah,
because I'm going to break a leg, and so there are lots of things that we can tell in advance that is not a good idea.
yeah. Like I said, learning from experience, really. But I mean, I know politics is a difficult matter, really, because I mean, there's so many issues at stake when you're making decisions, so you can't really. But I mean, everything at the moment is just a complete mess, really. The way I see it.
Yeah, but the
So
thing is, I mean, of course I agree with you that it's a complete mess, but you think, but they're not even making rational decisions. And not
that is
only
very
are
true.
they not making rational decisions, they refuse to be questioned about it. The media is not asking them, obvious questions that they should be asking.
Yeah, I suppose that's probably why they should go back to Hegel, really, because he thought that the state should be founded on rational principles. So,
But what are rational principles?
well, he did write a whole long book called The Elements in the Philosophy of Right, in which he explains all that. But,
Can you sum it up for us in a sentence?
um,
Or two?
well, well, obviously has freedom in mind, you know, because actually he thought you can only really be free in a state that is formed on rational principles. So, you know, it, for him, sort of consciousness, sort of our the way we look at things, obviously develops over history. And he thought that in the modern world, we're conscious of ourselves in different ways than we were previously. And so we can't sort of have freedom in the modern state, or in the unless we can sort of be with ourselves or find ourselves in the social institutions that can, provide for the actualization of our modern self-image. If you understand that.
Um, I, I think you were saying something about national identity, or that our sense of well-being depends on our national identity, which gives us our own self-identity. And obviously they have to be, favourable, identities to make us feel this sense of well-being. That we want to feel that we are good people. We
Yeah,
want to feel, and if we are good, we're more likely to be happy, and if we're happy, we're more likely to be good. Um, and what makes us good? We go back to religion, don't we? Because it is religion that instills morality.
yeah,
And now, of course, we have these jihadists and Islamists, and they're saying, well, you lot aren't very happy. Why don't you try our Sharia? And then we go, ah!
no, that wouldn't be a good idea. No, but,
But it's a logical question, and they do ask it. We don't seem to have a good answer. Okay, we say, oh, freedom, freedom, we want our freedom. And they're saying, well, you do have your freedom, and it's not making you happy.
exactly. That is that's the problem, really. That because to be happy, we'd have to find satisfaction, really, in our own subjectivity. Who we are, basically. But how we can do that and have a sort of in the modern state is actually a bit of a problem, really.
But maybe we need to be treated like children, because as children, I guess, a lot of adults say, "Ooh, I was happy when I was a child," and so I guess the happiness of being a child is to feel well looked after. So we want our government to look after us.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but I mean, to what extent? Maybe we want. Some of us want lower taxes, and some of us want more welfare spending, and then the decision has to be, well, who deserves what, and what should we give, the people, really, and then again, we have to go back to political ideology, because, we can be Marxists and say, well, everyone's equal, everyone gets paid the same, whatever they do, which I guess is what Marxism is, isn't it?
as I understand it, yeah.
Yeah. But the disadvantage of that is, well, if everyone's going to get the same, then I won't try that hard. I mean, gosh, it takes years to become a doctor, and if I'm just going to be paid the same as somebody who's sweeping the streets, then I ain't going to do it.
No, I mean, I don't think Marxism works really, and I mean, he's sometimes associated with Hegel. He's sort of developing the ideas from Hegel, really, but he took this sort of the spiritual dimension out of Hegel, really, and sort of it's not the same thing at all, really. I mean,
yeah, because Marx used the Hegelian dialectic to make one
yeah,
of his points, didn't he? So
yeah.
what did Marx? How did Marx apply the Hegelian dialectic?
Well, I mean, he sort of the conflict was basically between classes, really, didn't he? Working class and capitalists, but I don't think that's. You see, that isn't how I understand that dialectic anyway, because I tend to think it's dialectic. It's sort of it's to resolve your contradictions between concepts, really. I don't know that you can actually talk about contradictions existing in the material world,
Yeah, because I think Marx said eventually we will reach a workers' paradise when,
Well, that's not going to happen.
so it didn't happen, but he predicted a workers' revolution in industrialized countries,
Yeah,
but in fact it was undeveloped countries like China and Russia that had their revolutions, their Marxist revolutions. My little idea is simply this. The countries that are most likely to have a revolution are the countries with a low average age. So you have
yeah,
all the young men and the testosterone, and then they'll overthrow the government.
yeah.
But if your average age is high, or that ain't going to happen.
No, that's true. Yeah.
So, I suppose politicians would find it useful if we can predict the conditions of revolution, so they can try to avoid it. But I guess the only way to avoid revolutions is to give people reasonably good government, so they don't get upset with you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know, the politicians seem to be out of touch at the moment. But I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's
just
like
don't
they
know.
don't seem to want to know. It's like, well, we have quite a few questions we'd like to ask, but of course the media are not asking these
You
questions
see,
on our behalves.
the problem might be ideology. You see, I mean, if they have a globalist ideology, I mean, then that's what's driving them, and that is the problem with ideologies. You see,
Yeah,
like Marxist
okay, fair
ideology.
enough. Okay, so the Labour Party, the Tory Party, they're all globalists, and so we have
Yeah,
these anti-establishment parties who object to the consequences of globalism, which
Yeah.
is borderless nations and immigration, which they say, they use a euphemism called multiculturalism, but we know it
Yeah.
means immigration. So
Yeah.
you would have thought that UKIP might sort of, give us a narrative and say, well, this isn't what we want, and we want something else instead. And even then, they've kind of descended to this kind of, well, we hate Islam, and this is what we stand for. That's why Farage has left UKIP, because he's saying, well, I'm not going to be part of this Islamophobic party.
Well, it does seem to have gotten a bit more obsessed with Islam recently, yes.
But I think this hatred of Muslims isn't really hatred of immigration anyway. It's just like, Muslims are this group of, out of all the groups of immigrants that they feel is okay to hate, because, they do commit the occasional act of terrorism. And of course, ISIS doing what they did, it's sort of kind of solidified in the minds of many people that A, they don't like immigration, and B, they don't like Muslim ones. So I guess Muslims are basically taking the flak for something, for representing something in the minds of all these people who hate them.
Yeah. Well, it might be more the ideology.
Yeah, because it does directly threaten, Western lifestyles.
Yeah.
So there's obviously feminists feel threatened,
Well, yeah,
and gay people feel threatened.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's nothing new really, because the Old Testament says much worse things about gays and adulterous people.
Well, yes, it does really. Yeah.
But so now it's sort of like I mean, would you agree that we are kind of governed more by the principles of feminism than the principles of Christianity?
Well, feminists certainly do have a lot of influence. Yeah. But, well, I guess, yeah. Like I said, I mean, there are these ideologies that do have a lot, that do seem to pull a lot of weight, really. And I mean, it's at some point, the ideology just doesn't quite match up with the real world, and then we have problems, really.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you hear these feminists complaining about the patriarchy, and then you think there's no patriarchy anymore, really. It's
Well,
more a
not that I can see,
matriarchy as far as I'm concerned.
I don't think we're living in. I mean, maybe in some other parts of the world you might talk about a patriarchy, but it isn't one in this country now.
So I guess we have to go back to defining things so we know what we're talking about. And we started off by talking about Confucius, and one of his most useful ideas, in my view, is his idea of a rectification of names. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I've heard of it, yeah.
It's basically calling a spade a spade.
Yeah.
If you want to just, distill it to its essence. So he's saying, we have to call things by their proper names, because if you call things using a word that doesn't reflect what it really is, like, does it do what it says on the tin? I forget what it's advertising, something about wood preservative, I think. If it does what it does, if it does what it says on the tin, then you're all right. But so if feminists keep pretending that we're still a patriarchy, and we're not, then something is wrong. And so we have to say, look, we're no longer a patriarchy. So there's no need to keep saying you want to destroy it, because, well, you've destroyed it. So now we live in a matriarchy, and but then people say, oh, well, what's a matriarchy then? you know, and then you have to define that again.
I suppose some people do seem to derive a certain amount of power from the notion of victimhood, really.
Yeah, and it's called intersectionality, isn't it? Intersectional feminism. And you think, okay, you know, we can start breaking down feminism because, you know, the most important principle of feminism is gender equality, isn't it? Would you agree?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, okay, so there's nothing wrong, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, about saying, you know, men and women are equally valuable. I mean, obviously they're equally indispensable if you want to make babies, because you can't do it, you know, any other way,
Not at the moment, anyway, no.
naturally. Um, so, but we have to admit that, you know, men and women are different because they have different priorities and different things happen to their bodies when they do certain things.
Yeah.
And so what I find about feminism is that it has inverted all the social hierarchy to the extent that what was top is now bottom. And this is obviously causing a lot of resentment. Because, you know, the whole thing about intersectionality is the measurement and acquisition of victimhood. So,
Well, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's this joke about, you know, being a black, disabled lesbian, and then you're, you know, kind of beyond criticism, or something like that, because you've got all the protector characteristics that you know, it's like, no, you can't say that because you're being racist. You can't say that because you're being homophobic. You can't say that because you're being disabled. So I'm you know, 3 times protected if I, you know, am this black, disabled lesbian.
Well, that's how it works, yeah.
Yeah, and you can't say anything because, you know, you're white and you're heterosexual and you're, what's the other thing? And you're able-bodied.
Yeah.
Or am I making any assumptions? You think, oh, no, I'm not. But anyway, this is hypothetical anyway. So, you know, all these rights, these victim, these so-called
You see,
victims.
I mean, I think one of the most important rights is that of free speech, really, and it's very much under threat these days.
Yeah, and so we have, you know, people say, oh, we're part of the free West where speech is free, but actually it isn't, and people can lose their jobs, so they don't say anything, and then the you know, the government keeps passing more and more laws restricting more and more of our speech, and then until people just dare not speak, because, you know, obviously you're not going to, you know, lose your job. I mean, if you have a family, you know, to support and all that. And I guess even if you don't, you know, it's not very nice losing your job. And, you know, if you like all the shopping you can do with it. But then, you know, we go back to religion, isn't it? You know, it's like, you know, we have to, you know, okay, this liberal democracy is what we have. And then the opposition is, I guess, I guess it comes from 2 forms. It's like, you know, the nationalism that Trump represents, the alt-right, and then, you know, the other source of threat would be Islamism. Would you say?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
But I mean, what I found interesting is that the alt-right were talking about this thing called white Sharia. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I haven't actually, no.
Anyway, I mean, it was mentioned in Time magazine, and I think the Southern Poverty thingy.
Oh yeah, I know about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did talk about it, saying, these are all these sort of white men, you know, wanting to deprive, you know, their women of all their rights in order to, you know, get what they want. So I mean, this suggests, doesn't it, that it's all to do with sex at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, it seems like that. Yeah.
So on the one extreme, we have, our sexual liberation that, we're all supposed to enjoy. And then on the other hand, you have, these Muslims saying, we're going to throw gays off tall buildings, we're going to stone adulterers to death, and we're going to lash, fornicators. So obviously, that is, the clear blue water between Islam and what we have now. It's, how expensive. It's about the price of sex. Obviously, the Muslims are saying you can't have sex at all. They're just saying, well, you can only have sex if you're married to the person you're having sex with. And that's it. And if you're a man, you can have up to 4 wives, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I guess, and all the people who want to get, who don't like Muslims are saying, no, we don't make us marry our women because we can't. Because I guess they don't want to marry all these feminists who are going to give them a hard time.
Well, yeah, that's true. So.
Huh. And Hegel has had nothing to say about feminism then?
Well, I don't really think they would. I mean, actually, feminists do write about Hegel, but I'm not gone into much of them. But I can imagine they're not very fond of him now. But he does in the philosophy of right, he does have quite a few things to say about women.
Oh, did he? What did he say?
Well, I could read you some if you want.
Yeah, go on.
Well, this might sound a bit sexist of it, but anyway, I'll read it anyway.
Go on, yeah.
He said, women may be well educated, but they're not made for the high sciences, for philosophy and certain artistic productions which require a universal element. Women may have insights, taste and delicacy, but they do not possess the ideal. And there's a very strange comparison here coming up now, because he did have some strange analogies.
Mm-hmm.
It says the difference between man and woman is the difference between animal and plant. The animal is closer in character to man, the plant to woman, for the latter is a more peaceful process of unfolding, whose principles is the more indeterminate unity of feeling. When women are in charge of government, the state is in danger, or their actions are based not on demands of universality, but on contingent inclination and opinion. The education of women takes place imperceptibly, as if through the atmosphere of representational thought, more through living than through the acquisition of knowledge, whereas man attains his position only through the attainment of thought and numerous technical exertions.
Brilliant.
Like I said, he's probably not very popular with feminists. So.
Right. Well, I must ask you for the link to it later. I find yes, it's true and it's comical, and I have tried to discuss politics with men and women, and it's true they're not really interested, and if they become interested, then they'll take everything really personally. And hate you just because you don't agree with them. So, and then when they really hate you, they feel they have a right to do anything to you.
Well, yeah, that's very true. Yeah, very so.
And I fear that women have indeed taken over all the important institutions of state, and men are afraid. They are afraid to challenge them, and
well, feminism has got a lot of power now. You see, yeah.
But it's not just the obvious power that feminism have. Even in the form of its laws. I think a lot of men are in denial about how much power feminism has over them. I mean, recently I've been reading about, I think it was mostly New York Times or well, in America, saying these American women saying, "Oh, our marriage is under so much strain because I don't agree with my husband about
Yeah,
politics." And really, it's like they're giving their husband a hard time for voting for Trump.
yeah,
Um, and I think I certainly remember that before Trump came to power, a woman before he won the presidential election, a woman was saying, "I'm going to divorce my husband if he dares to vote for Trump." You know, it's like what?
it just seems to divide people. Yes.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, it seems to me that really the Western world is divided between yin and yang, which is, you know, another
yeah,
ancient Chinese idea, just saying, you know, just expect this to happen in your civilization, you know, whoever you are, you know, because it's a kind of idea that represents the eternal battle of sexes.
yeah,
So obviously, I suppose if you give men a chance, you know, they will want, you know, the totally submissive Stepford wife. But of course, women, you know, do have a mind of their own, and they will try to get round that. And
yeah.
and so, you know, you do have to really. I mean, you can't even stop them anyway, because obviously they're going to try and get their own way. I mean, even a married couple who do love each other will, you know, try to get one over the other if they can, can't they? Don't they?
Yeah.
Um, so, but now, you know, it's like you have all these laws that favour women, and it's like, well, why would any man want to marry? You know, if things are like that, because
Well, I know all about it because I am divorced.
oh, I'm
So,
sorry.
so I have had first experience of all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if you listened to The World at One, because all last week, Sarah Montague
Yeah.
was sort of, you know, doing this, you know, propaganda session for coercive control.
Yeah.
And,
I didn't listen to that. No, I
well,
missed
I
that.
think it'll make you angry. I mean, you know, I sort of fell off my chair, really. Um, so it's like, yeah, this is another Confucius thingy
Yeah.
who said so really this is about coercive control.
Yeah.
So she got in this these two brothers, the Hart brothers, Luke and Ryan Hart, um, quite good-looking lads whose mother was murdered by their father, who shot soon after she moved out because she wanted a divorce. So he shot their mother and their sister. So it was, you know, quite a spectacular end to
Yeah.
their relationship. But he was saying, the brothers were saying, yeah, he shouted at us, you know, he slammed a few doors, but he never, you know, he never was violent to us or to our mother. He just, you know, had his tantrums and he shouted at us. So yes, he was controlling, but you know, we never thought that he was violent, and we couldn't, you know. So he was just sort of saying he was, on the one hand, admitting that their father was never violent, and on the other hand, saying you can go to jail for you know, exercising coercive control. And I thought, what does that mean? Does it mean shouting at your spouse? Because you do shout when you're having an argument, usually.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people just raise their voices when they get upset and angry. So you know, what are they saying? You know, you can't even object to whatever it is your wife wants to do. But sometimes she might want to do silly things. You know, it's like, well, why even marry then? If you're just going to be, you know, her slave, and then they're saying, oh, children can get their parents on coercive control.
Well, it's a bit of a broad brush, isn't it? Coercive control. I mean, that could mean quite a lot of things, really, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could just mean, you know, I don't like you wearing that. Your bum does
Yeah.
look good, big in it, and that's
Yeah.
coercive control.
Yeah.
You know, no, I don't want you to go dancing three nights a week. Is
Yeah.
that coercive control?
Oh, good question, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're
So,
probably right. It probably would have made me angry if I'd been listening to it, yeah. You know.
yeah, so, I mean, what they seem to be doing is to make, marriage such a bad bargain that nobody goes into it.
Yeah.
Why are they doing that?
I don't know, really. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's already been normalised. It's sort of normal not to get married, not normal not to have children. And then it's like, well, then why are you complaining about immigration? Because you're not producing enough children to enter the labour force of today. So, you know, are businesses supposed to wait until the women produce enough children? Are they supposed to wait until, state education educates them properly enough to want to become until they become desirable employees as school leavers. I mean, they've been complaining about these things for years already, decades. So, and none of this is being done. It's like, oh, you can't Brexit, and we're just going to have more immigration. I mean, that's why people are going crazy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, when you were talking about marriage, it reminds me, that Hegel actually thought of marriage as essentially an ethical relationship.
Ethical.
A lot of what he says sounds really good on paper, actually, but I'm not quite sure.
Well, I mean, I would just, I don't want to romanticize it. It's like, no. Let's just call it a contract of mutual enslavement.
Yeah, well, it does work out like that sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just say pretend it's a bit of roses and you'll be happy forever. No, you'll hate your spouse. Yeah, but you have to, just stick with them because, we're going to stigmatize divorce. So you can't just sort of leave your husband or your wife when, they get, boring, bald, irritating, fat, or whatever it is that, people leave their, get their divorces for.
Yeah.
It's like, well, and a lot of my girlfriends aren't happier because they divorced their husbands. And if they do get a new man, it's like, well, he's not as good as your last one, was he? Is he?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's almost like, they need to be protected from themselves by, just by the law stigmatizing divorce. So at least they stay together and, and don't find themselves in a worse position. It's all, well, better the devil you know.
Well, yeah. Yes, that is true.
All right. Well, I'm sorry to go on.
No, it's very interesting listening to you, yeah. I think we've covered quite a lot of ground. Anyway,
we have, and I hope we haven't. Oh my goodness, it's nearly an hour. It doesn't feel that long, but perhaps an hour is.
Pretty quickly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, is there anything you'd like to say about yourself, or to advertise yourself, or are you happy to? Before we go.
Oh. No, not really. I don't think. No.
Okay.
Just, I would advise people to try and read Hegel sometime. That's what I would recommend, because he's a very great philosopher.
Yes, I'll find it, but perhaps you'll send me that extract about women.
Oh, yeah.
that you were reading from.
Yeah. And well, actually, I do actually have a Hegel page on Facebook if anybody wants to look it up.
Okay.
So I do like to use social media to spread the word.
Okay. And I'll get the link from you, and then I'll post it under the video that I shall upload sometime later today. Then, David.
Yep.
Okay. Well, and are you looking forward to Christmas?
Well, I suppose so, but not wanting to go into the sad story of my life, but with the divorce and being sort of separated from my daughter and everything, it's sort of a bit. Anyway, I could sometimes do without Christmas, but I suppose it's and
Yeah.
make the most of it.
Well, I think Christmas is quickly over. I mean, I
Well, that's
find,
beautiful.
most of my days are quickly over, and I feel I've done hardly anything.
Yeah.
Um, but today has been very rewarding so far. I'm really pleased that we've had our chat, and I look
Yeah.
forward to putting the video up with the links to your sites and everything. So,
Sounds good.
okay then.
Anyway, nice chatting to you.
Nice chatting to you, David. Take
Okay, take care.
care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.